when you do your detox once a month, I know you have a couple of products, but what kind of ingredients should people be looking for? Welcome, everyone. Today, I have my guest, Dr. Peter Dobias, an amazing veterinarian and healer. He has an amazing line of products, by the way, as well, peterdobias.com. Really cool stuff. We're focusing on liver health this month. So I asked Peter if he would be interested in speaking about liver detoxification, because the liver is kind of the central processing station for all the toxins in the world, all the chemicals that we put on, in, or around our pets, and it's got to get out of the body somehow. Unfortunately, not all of it gets out of the body, so that's a problem. So thank you, Peter, for being willing to have this conversation.
Hi, Judy. So glad to be here. Any opportunity to talk about detox?
Yeah, so detox, I mean, we're talking about liver detox, but just kind of detox in general. Most of us and most of our pets live in a really toxic world. Some of us are lucky enough to live in sort of less toxic areas, but let's face it, stuff is all around us. In so many different forms. How often, oh boy, I have so many questions here. So, do you recommend just general detox just because we live in this toxic world? How often do you recommend these are all the things I got to get you to cover in the next few minutes. How often do you recommend that, and what products or herbs or foods do you kind of lean toward when you want to do that? So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, it's a loaded question, but I may start with the notion that hundreds of new chemicals are released or invented every year, and maybe more than 100, if I'm not mistaken,
I was going to say it's probably in the thousands.
but in the U.S. Department of Agriculture, obviously some of these substances need to be improved, and we know that there's definitely over 100 new substances every year, and maybe more. I don't really know exactly the numbers, but I know that it's in the hundreds. So not only we are exposed to what humanity has created in the industrial age, but also there's new chemicals and substances coming on. And obviously the liver is not only important for detoxing and getting rid of the toxins, but it's also responsible for over 500 different metabolic functions, and it needs to be healthy. And if it's really stressed by detoxing the body and keeping us alive and our dogs alive, then we need to really support it. So instead of just calling it a detox, I call it detox and liver support, because if we do those two, it will be much more effective, because we make the liver stronger and also will allow it to be more efficient in detoxing. I started learning about the importance of detoxing in practice in my veterinary clinic by doing hair testing in dogs and realizing that many of them have arsenic and lead and mercury in the body. And I was trying to figure out how to reduce the levels. And because I was told that mercury stays in the body for a long, long time and we can detox it very well, I really worked hard on developing protocols that would actually do that, and discovered that in fact mercury doesn't stay in the body as long as we believed, and that within a few months, if you do proper detox, it actually the levels lower dramatically. Going to the protocol that I use, I have used a product that I formulated myself, but there are other products on the market that are also beneficial and have similar ingredients or the same ingredients in some cases. And I originally thought that doing a detox once every 6 months would be actually sufficient. But then I worked with some other patients and started doing the detox once a week, every month. And that seemed to be more effective because I never allowed the toxin level and the burden to the liver get us far in the 6 months. So that's what I've been doing, and that's what I've been doing for my patients and also my
So you
dog.
do 1 week out of each month?
1 week out of each month, and I have a little
Okay.
calendar, and I have a detox week. And similar to what we do when we fast. Some people fast for several days every month or something like that. uh, I also learned, and this is an interesting part, that when there are any inflammatory conditions in the body, which we know toxins may be part of, that once you kind of get into the rhythm of detoxing more frequently and for shorter time, these inflammatory responses, let's say ear inflammation or infections, disappear. I have a friend who's been using liver detox as part of the treatment protocol for her dog's ear inflammation, and where every time she sees a little tiny pink in her dog's ear, or when they get inflamed, she uses a detox, and it works beautifully. It calms down within a day or two, and she now learns to determine what to do. So it's not only getting rid of the toxins, and there are many different substances, and we are not going to get into um, plastic and xenoestrogens and heavy metals and air pollution and
Everything.
cleaners and everything. But overall, I think it's super important to support the liver so it has better capacity, and almost do our best to heal it with the herbs and superfoods and nutrients that we have in our cleansing products.
Yeah, and I think that's really critical. The superfoods part, of course, we all know that I'm like a food nut.
Mm.
Um, it is pretty impossible in my mind to feed a highly processed diet that has poor nutrient quality and expect our pets to thrive and have their best health. I think that if we're feeding highly processed, poor quality food ingredients, detoxing, it's still gonna help, but you're not going to have that same effect. So this is where supporting the liver, because from a Chinese medicine perspective, I see so many dogs with liver blood deficiency
Hmm.
from these
Hmm.
highly processed diets that don't have any of those good blood tonics. They don't have anything that really is supporting the liver. So that brings us back to what you said at the beginning. Yes, we need to do our detox protocol, whatever we decide. I think some people do it like every 3 months. Some people do it a couple times a year. I kind of like the 1 week out of every month, and keeping them at a nice stable level instead of like you said, getting it built up. It's sort of like you allow the dirt to build up on the floor for 3 years, and then it's like, oh, I got to get rid of all this. It takes a lot more work to get rid of it than if you were doing it every month.
Hmm.
So
Maintenance,
um,
maintenance,
yes, maintenance
regular
is
cleaning.
much better,
Yes.
but the diet is such an important part of supporting that liver health and giving them a good foundation to work with to begin with. When you do your detox once a month, I know you have a couple of products, but what kind of ingredients should people be looking for?
Oh my goodness. Whenever I formulate a product, it really takes a long time. I take years to actually come to give a product a birth. But I can only tell you what ingredients I like for detoxing. Obviously,
Okay.
the old milk thistle is an important one, which is similar, which is a very important, research and science confirmed liver supporting ingredient. I
Yeah,
really love barley
absolutely.
grass. Barley grass is, again, superfood, detox, alkalizer. It does have a cleansing effect. I'm sure that you would be able to give us more info on Chinese medicine as well.
It's cooling and draining.
Absolutely. Dandelion root is another one. Artichoke is another one that has shown to have some sort of liver regeneration properties and abilities. I like to put cilantro in just to kind of help the heavy metal detoxification. I like broccoli sprouts for many reasons. They obviously have discovered that broccoli sprouts have higher content of vitamins and antioxidants and superfoods and sulfur-containing compounds that are also anti-cancer,
Hmm.
that have anti-cancer effect. Turmeric root as well is important, and you know you can always you have to be very, very careful with the dosages and make sure that you don't underdose, but also don't overdose certain
Right.
ingredients. The sad part of the whole current situation is that dogs with elevated liver enzymes and liver disease do not live, 80% of them do not live past 5 years. So I really believe that preventing liver disease and really looking after a dog's liver as if it was the most precious organ is super important. Obviously, you can't really say what is important. Is it the heart or the liver or the kidneys? But liver is a metabolic superfactory, and there is no doubt that it's important in our dog's health and immunity and vitamin production and energy metabolism and detox.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And when I was in practice, I'm a super nut about lab work. Like if any patient was on any kind of chronic medication, they had to have lab work every 3 months. And
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of practices, it's once a year. I had some people come to me with their dogs and cats that had never had lab work, that were on chronic medications. It's like, well, how are we monitoring how this is affecting their body? So I was just kind of a crazed maniac about lab work, because I felt like it was being very proactive and really getting a glimpse to what was going on inside their body. And elevated liver enzymes showed up so often. So
Mm-hmm.
like, and I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of it is just toxic diets, toxins in the environment, toxic medications that they're getting, toxic chemicals that we're using on them. But elevated liver enzymes are probably the most common abnormality that we see on lab work.
Very
Um,
true. Very true.
and I think that a lot of it has to do with aflatoxins in the processed pet feed. I think that's a huge part of it. So I think that if we're not proactive about knowing what's going on inside, and if we're not proactive about bringing those levels down by using things like you were mentioning, which I love all of those, if we're not being proactive, then we're just going to see this build up and build up and build up, and then we end up with things like liver cancers and immune dysfunction and all kinds of things going wrong. And it's really amazing, and this is one of those where I feel like herbal medicine or alternative food therapy, whatever we want to term it, I really feel like this is where we have like a superpower to detox the liver. When we
Mm-hmm.
use those sort of products on these animals, one, we have to fix their diet if they're not on a good diet. But when we use products like yours and other products that have those types of ingredients in them, it's amazing how quickly those levels will come down. We see the animals feeling better, their
Mm-hmm.
coats get better, their eyes are clearer and brighter. A lot of those ear infections disappear, because from a Chinese medicine standpoint, we have to look at the liver and gallbladder meridians. Where do they go? Oh yeah, back and forth around the eyes, the ears. And so anytime we have these bright red eyeballs and eye discharge and goopy
Mm-hmm.
ears, we have to look at getting the liver and gallbladder straightened out. So I love your protocol. I think that's a great way to do it.
It's with regards to the ingredients, and food, like you were talking about food and processed food. If it sits on a shelf for 6 months, 12 months, or longer, it's not really good. So, feeding ideally either homemade, raw, or cooked food, or food that has the reputation, whether it's processed or not. Minimally processed is always
Mm-hmm.
better, and I know that some people just don't have the capacity to do that. So going to the reputable brands that, for example, you carry on your store, and really know that they're good and that there are good, passionate people behind them.
Yes.
I think ingredient sourcing is also important, whether it comes to food or supplements.
Yep.
And I really do like and appreciate the research in the area of fermented foods and fermentation, whether it's again foods or supplements. I definitely love the fermentation of foods and supplements because it is known to increase bioavailability and absorption by about 10%. Sorry, 10 times, 10 folds. So it's super important for us to continue learning and improve the efficacy or the effect of healing foods. And as you said, there's so much potential. It's
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's
it is.
exciting.
It is. It is, especially when you start putting in practice and you start seeing your own pets, or in our case,
Mhm.
patients, transforming. It's pretty amazing. So I thank you very much for your time today, Peter. And I think that everyone needs to figure out some way to, if your diet needs, your pet's diet needs to be improved, figure out how to do that, but also incorporate some sort of detoxification, help the liver stay healthy, particularly if your pet already has elevated liver enzymes on their lab work. Really critical that we keep this organ healthy for health span and lifespan.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Take care. Bye bye.